thing that I would say is that God's choices are always perfect. And God's hand has been in this from the very beginning. We have been able to see God's provision from when Ryan accepted Jesus at the age of 3. And I can share with you God's provision through today and how he's working in our lives. And, Ryan's story is not about loss, and it's not about suffering, and it's not about pain associated with cancer. Ryan's witness and testimony is one about hope, life, and everlasting salvation. And that's the message that I tried to communicate during his service and as I stuttered my way through. But, truly, if you ask yourself 2 questions, has God ever lied to you? And I think Christians would say no. And then ask yourself in the same vein, has God ever loved you? And obviously, as Christians, we would immediately say yes. And you never want to doubt in the dark what God's taught you in the light.
We were driving in the car one day, and he had, seen the cemeteries with the tombstones, and it kind of asked about, what those were, and we talked about when you die and your spirit leaves your body, and that's, where people are left. And it was something that we had talked about a couple, days earlier, and just out of nowhere, he said, well, Mom, does everyone who died go to heaven? And I'm like, well, I thought he would be a little older before he'd ask a question. I said, well, no. According to the Bible, no, everyone doesn't go to heaven. I said, you need to ask Jesus to come into your heart and admit that you're a sinner and ask him to forgive you of those sins and to make you new and a new person. And he will come into your heart and live in your heart, and he will change your life. And then you become a child of God, and you are related. And when the inheritance comes, you go to heaven because that's where God lives, and that's where Jesus is. And I just kind of left it at that, and because we're ready to turn a corner, and I just heard this small little quaky voice in the back going, "Dear Jesus, please, forgive my sins." But he said shins and come into my heart and save me. And I just couldn't believe I was hearing it, because I just couldn't believe it. I told him what it was. I didn't say, would you like to ask Jesus into your heart? that was it. He heard how it was done, and he knew he wanted it. And he did it, and I just about crashed with the tears trying to, drive, and it was wonderful. And I know that God saved him because his little heart was changed. And, he just was not a discipline problem. I wasn't constantly fighting against attitudes and issues with him. He had a heart for the Lord and a heart to please and to do right. And he had a sweetness and a sensitiveness about him that just continued on and just grew as he got older.